Hi everyone and welcome to Survivable Branch Office Telephony in the Modern Era. My name is Torren Manson. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Servers and Services. I tweet and blog some things that I hope are useful to everyone. Please do note my contact information and my social media information on the bottom right hand corner of this slide. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. So the agenda today, we'll start off with an introduction and talk about the Survivable Branch Appliance, where it came from, what it is. We'll talk about what your users actually do in the branch office, and then we'll go through 3 scenarios: on-premises, hybrid, and online, and what your options are to have your branch office have survivable telephony. Bit of a disclaimer first, this is a new Microsoft. They are cloud first, they are mobile first. Releases can be fast and furious, and I have had them release new information that invalidated some of my presentation content mere minutes before I did a presentation. So please do reach out either to myself, someone else in the industry, check TechNet, Google, make sure that the information in this presentation that you're running on to do a deployment is up to date and is still accurate. So let's talk about the Survivable Branch Appliance, where it came from. Skype for Business has had a Survivable Branch Appliance since it was Link 2010, and really this was in response to Cisco having survivable remote telephony, wherein you could put a line card into a router in your branch office and get access to the PSTN that way. Microsoft thought that this was a really great thing to do, not just for the Cisco compete, but in general, and they came out with the Survivable Branch Appliance. Now, the problem that I have with this is around the time that this came out, the big thing was appliances. And so, I've entered here on the slide, oh, look, an appliance. It was supposed to be easy to set up. It wasn't really. The idea was you could ship this box to your remote hands and eyes in your branch office. They could rack it and sack it and plug it in, and then you could complete the rest of the configuration from head office as the senior IT guy. That wasn't always the case. Some of the upgrades that I've done on these have required USB hubs, USB keyboards, USB flash drives, VGA monitors, and some archaic command line interfaces to try and get updates done. Once they're up and running, updates are actually from the vendor and not directly from Microsoft. Link 2010 CU4 was the first foray for Microsoft into having a mobile client. And if you were a user homed on an SBA that didn't have the CU on it, you couldn't get access to the new mobile functionality. A couple of the SBA vendors were up to 6 months late releasing that CU. So not only were those users either not able to take advantage of the mobile clients or needed to be moved to a different pool, but also consider that for 6 months, there could have been security or performance issues that weren't addressed here. That's not a very expedient update in my books. The Survivable Branch Appliance was usually a card in a gateway or a gateway on a card inside a server. And typically what happened is you wound up with an underpowered mess. Think about a 2U gateway, and now you're going to put essentially a server into it on a very small card, the size of an iPhone, and it just doesn't have the power, it doesn't have the cooling to have the higher power system pump through it. The device can't provide the power to it from the power supply, so they were woefully underpowered in some instances, and call quality did suffer in some of the deployments that I saw, even when the user count was less than what the specification said they were good for. There are virtually no features on the SBA. The idea here was that your user would register to the SBA, they would be homed on the SBA, but all of their conferencing and those other functions would still take place in a pool that the SBA was paired with. Maybe paired is a bad word, but configured with or associated with. The failover methodology, if the SBA went down, is the user went into a limited functionality mode and then contacted the main pool for services. If the WAN to head office went down, a bunch of those services were unavailable, and the user was in that limited functionality mode as well, but did have telephony available to them. However, they had no IM buddy list, and they had no normalization rules when they dialed the number. They would have to dial the full number in order to call it. For users who are used to click to call or entering a 4-digit extension, this is a vastly different user experience. There's also no pool failover involved in SBAs. If the pool that an SBA is associated with goes down, the SBA doesn't fail over to the other pool in that pair. You just pop into limited functionality mode. So in terms of PSTN connectivity for the SBA, you've got your standard three. You can have analog, PRI, or SIP. Analog are, in my mind, something that should be avoided. There's no DID support, and the analog call quality is simply lacking. PRIs are better, but they're typically expensive, with a minimum of 23 channels for North American infrastructure. Yes, you can get a fractional PRI that has, say, 10 channels, but you're not paying half price versus a 23 channel PRI. You're paying more like 3/4. So the cost savings really isn't there. They are expensive. SIP is a lot better. I really like it. The downside to SIP is that you need internet or MPLS to bring that into your environment. But the big thing that SIP offers you is you can have inbound disaster recovery options. So if your provider can't deliver a call to your branch office over SIP for whatever reason, the internet or MPLS connection is down, your gateway is down, or there's a power outage in the branch office, that call can be diverted to the main office and still reach some sort of a destination. PRIs typically don't offer you very much in the way of inbound redundancy, and analog offers you nothing whatsoever. So with SBAs and inbound calling, you want to be careful. Remember, I said that the SBA really doesn't have any functionality in it. This extends to auto attendants that are hosted on Microsoft Exchange. Those are usually centralized, they're hosted, maybe they're online, but you're probably not going to see a branch office that has an Exchange server in it. So if the wide area network is down from your branch office to where your Exchange server is, you're not going to have voicemail functionality, and you're not going to have auto attendant functionality. All right, so let's say you do response groups instead of auto attendants. They're maybe similar enough for very basic situations where you could get away with that, but the response group service doesn't run on the SBA. It runs on the pool that's in that central office, and the WAN connection's down. So you get no response groups, no auto attendants, no voicemail. This is not good. This really, in my mind, isn't survivability. I should add there, let me hop back here. If you do have a call come into an auto attendant or a response group through main PRI or SIP trunk into that main office, that auto attendant or response group cannot deliver calls across the WAN to your user in the branch office. So they're going to have some failures there for call delivery. Hopefully they'll have some backup in the configuration that you've put in place, and they'll be able to get to a voicemail or an alternate destination. So let's talk about your users in the branch office. So what do your users do? Do you really need survivability with your Skype for Business in your branch office? If the WAN goes down for your branch office users, Skype for Business is out if you don't have any infrastructure in place. Okay, fine. But what is the job of these users in the branch office? Can they still do that job if the WAN is down? Today, chances are they'll probably be connecting across that WAN to servers at head office, servers on the internet, servers in a data center, and they'll also have other things that they can't do because of that outage. So if they can't do most of their job, don't just focus on, hey, let's get them this limited functionality telephony in the branch office if they still can't do anything else in their job. Limited functionality mode again, let's call a spade, it sucks. Nobody's going to use it. They'll just find something else to do. Is this something that you need to spend money on in your organization? So let's have a look at what all of the options are for on-premises solutions. This is what your typical SBA deployment looks like. In these diagrams that I've got here, they're all pretty much the same. On the left-hand side, we have a branch office. On the right-hand side, we have the head office or the data center infrastructure. Across the bottom, we have PSTN. Across the middle, we have wide area network connectivity. And across the top, we have internet connectivity. So this is what the SBA looks like in the bottom left. Let me get the laser pointer here. This is the SBA over here. It's contacting the PSTN over its own connectivity. So the SBA is really these two devices here. There's the gateway and the server component. I've broken them up here because in some instances in future slides, we're just going to use one component versus the other. So this is your typical infrastructure running as it should when everything is up and happy. So this is a typical busted SBA deployment. So our WAN is down. Our user here is now going to go into limited functionality mode. They don't have any of those audio conferencing functions that we talked about. Video conferencing, meetings, PowerPoint presentations, that's all done over here on the right-hand side in the Skype pool, and they are not reachable over the WAN. So this user, if they want to make a local national call, is going to have to dial out by dialing in the 11 digits for that number, 1 area code 5551212. If they're calling another user within their organization, they're going to have to dial again that full phone number format of the 1 with the area code and then the numbers. They're not going to be able to simply dial the 4-digit extension that they're probably used to dialing in that branch office. Click to call similarly is not going to work. So maybe the users aren't used to dialing extensions. They're used to going to their buddy list and just clicking on somebody to call them. Well, you can't do that anymore. That functionality, the buddy list, is provided by those servers that are across the WAN that we can't contact. So what are our options? The first option is we can throw a redundant WAN into the mix. So if the primary WAN is down, we've got our secondary WAN, and we can get across to the server. So note here that I've gotten rid of the gateway out of the left. I do apologize. I should have gotten rid of this server component that's up here as well and just had the user represented in the office. This is a non-SBA deployment where the user is simply coming across a WAN to access all of their servers from the main office. The scenario here is the wide area network is down. The new infrastructure that we've added here into this scenario is in the green, and by putting in that redundant WAN, we can allow that user to reach the servers. One of the challenges with a redundant WAN is you're either paying for it and not using it, although some carriers do offer a more expensive pay-as-you-go. But often what we see is a lower capacity backup wide area network put into place. You need to be careful in your Skype for Business configuration here that you block things like high definition video. Otherwise, if Bob fires up a high definition conference over the backup WAN, he's going to suck up all of the bandwidth and nobody's going to be able to make any other calls. The best way to do this is by looking for the DSCP tagging in your quality of service for what you've tagged the video to and simply dropping it. The other way of doing it is to look for the port numbers and the destination of the server. So you're looking at an IP and a port number combination just to make sure that you've got the right traffic. If you can't do any of those, you can take your best guess on implementing probably just the ports to try and block that. The second option would be a backup VPN, local internet for those users. Traffic can go out through the internet. It's VPN'd, it's much the same as the WANs. The biggest difference here is that you're going to see a scenario where you might have an internet connection that is asynchronous and not give you the upstream bandwidth that you need for phone calls. The third option is to pull the SBA entirely out of the branch office and deploy a standard edition server. So I've highlighted that in green here. That's a full standard edition server, and the gateway below it is a standalone gateway. It's no longer this module that's co-located with the SBA in the same piece of hardware. The downside to this approach is that this standard edition server needs to be licensed. It's a full price license, and all of your functionality happens in your branch office now, so you can have your meetings, and they'll still be up as long as you're not inviting users from the rest of the company. But within your office, they'll be fine. The downside to this is your users are homed on this new standard edition server. So in a branch office scenario, if Bob has a meeting and invites 100 people from within the company, all those 100 people are going to come across the wide area network to have that meeting off of the server in the branch office, which is probably a less than ideal solution. Never mind the administrative overhead of having the care and feeding and patching and maintaining of standard edition servers, especially if you've got a number of branches. Option number 4 that's more and more possible these days is simply to use mobile clients. Oh, our phone system is down. What can I do? Oh, I can log on to Skype for Business on my mobile client on my iPhone. And hey, I've got full functionality. I have my contact list is there. I can click to call. I can join meetings. We're even at the point now where we can share screens from mobiles and do a presentation. So this is a fantastic option for those really rare instances. Option number 5 is simply to get up out of the office and the outage that's affecting that office. This can be your mobile client over LTE to the internet, over Wi-Fi from Starbucks, or just head home and work from home. Your call media flow in this scenario isn't going to be able to go back across to your SBA or to any infrastructure in your branch. It's going to need to go through that head office infrastructure. Which is fine because it's just a branch office wide area network that's down. Option number 6 is kind of interesting. AudioCodes has gotten very creative, and they have a solution called One Voice Resiliency. And what this involves is your AudioCodes 400 HD series phones, so the 440, the 450, can register to an AudioCodes gateway or session border controller, and in the event that the Skype for Business servers are unreachable, they will go into a resiliency mode and allow phone calls in and out. The downside of this solution is that it does lock you into the AudioCodes gateways and SBCs in the AudioCodes phones, and it also doesn't do anything for you for PC clients and for mobile clients. It's only those 400 series AudioCodes phones that can take advantage of the solution. If that scenario applies to you, though, it's a bit of configuration to get it going, and it is some extra licensing. But this is a really great solution if you're in an environment where you've got to have phones up and running in a branch office and you're using AudioCodes or want to use AudioCodes. So let's change gears now from on-premises to hybrid options. So for all of the hybrid options, we're going to have local PSTN connectivity as our goal. On this first slide, we've got local PSTN connectivity out of the branch office on the left, but we've got centralized internet. So like some of the earlier slides for the on-premises scenarios, if that wide area network connection goes down, I can't get up to the cloud to where my user is homed, and my traffic can't get back from the cloud to my gateway in my branch office to make it out to the PSTN. I've highlighted that call path here in green. If you have both local PSTN and internet, what's going to happen now is your green traffic for that user is going to go up to Skype for Business Online, and it'll make it there. But now your SIP traffic to get from the mediation server, to get from the Skype for Business Online servers to your on-prem mediation server and out to the gateway, which is in blue here, is going to have to come down and through branch office and out through the into head office and out through the head office gateway. So even though you've got a wide area network outage going on here, your user is still able to reach the cloud, and the cloud servers are still able to reach back to your on-prem servers and reach the PSTN. Finally, if you have local PSTN and local internet and you have an outage of that local internet, you can divert that access traffic over to head office, out to the cloud, and the cloud can reach back and access gateways at the branch office or at the head office. So with these hybrid configurations, there's a couple of different options that you can have here. There's on-premise call handling, which is where you've got a full Skype for Business deployment in your on-premises infrastructure. You can have Cloud Connector Edition, which is the Microsoft provided Hyper-V virtual appliance scenario where you don't have any on-premises Skype for Business infrastructure. And lastly, soon to come out in preview now is Teams, which is an online only option with direct routing, which has your gateway or your session border controller on your premises talking directly to the cloud for access. Those three solutions will all have different options for how your call flow outbound from the cloud to your on-prem branch or your on-prem head office can work as far as redundancy goes. So make sure that you really pull up the docs and dive into those to make sure that you truly understand where you can do outbound redundancy, for example, and inbound redundancy, and where you can't. There are a couple of gotchas there. Unfortunately, way too deep of a topic to get into in this presentation, but please do be aware of that. There are some differences between the three models. And lastly, we're going to look at the cloud-only options. The simple scenario here is you have PSTN calling. So you've got a calling plan from Microsoft. Microsoft is your phone company. You're a user in a branch office and there's a WAN outage or even a head office internet outage. You are out of luck. You cannot connect through the branch office to Skype for Business Online or to Teams. The good part about that solution or that occurrence is the fix for it is simple, and we saw that in some earlier slides for the on-premises stuff, is leave the office. Go somewhere that has access, or turn on your LTE on your mobile and use the mobile client to regain that access to the cloud. Everything's there, and you don't have that worry that I just talked about with these different hybrid infrastructures, the CCE, the on-premise call handling, and the direct routing, because Microsoft is providing all of that for you in the cloud. They make sure that it's reachable and highly available. So this is a very slick, very simple solution for high availability. Here's the same scenario now with local internet access, and I'll stop for a sec here and I'll point out that this is Microsoft's recommendation that you have local internet access for your Skype for Business Online and your Teams users, and not to route it back to a centralized point. The latency that's added, the call path that the call has to take to get there in some cases can be really significant and have quite an impact on your call. So in this case, the wide area network connection to head office is down, but that doesn't matter because we've got our local internet breakout. We can still get out to Skype for Business Online and to Teams. Now, if you're an organization that says we have to have centralized internet access because we need to understand where our users are going and control that, and that's easier for us to do through one firewall or one group of firewalls, great. So there's a couple of options that you can do, and I would suggest have a look at putting the local internet firewall in your branch offices, but restrict them for only your Microsoft traffic for your Skype for Business and your Teams. Microsoft publishes all of the IP addresses and all of the port numbers that are used for these, so you can configure your policy-based routing on these devices to ensure that traffic to Skype for Business Online and Teams goes out the local egress point, and everything else goes through the head office. So if we have a local internet failure, we do have the option. You can now route all of that traffic back through head office and still have connectivity. So if you've got a less expensive consumer class internet connection to try and provide you that shorter hop, that better quality that we've just been talking about, that's cool. You can still have that. There's a higher chance it's going to go down, but connecting through head office gives you some redundancy. So some other considerations here to talk about. We mentioned inbound calling, so I just wanted to revisit that and say that PSTN access to these services, auto attendance response groups, is best kept away from the branches and kept to those centralized access points where you've got the redundancy not only for the access but for those services themselves. Trying to put auto attendance and response group functionality out in the branches, um, it's possible, but it's going to be a lot of work, and at the end of the day, I don't think it's the best solution to be doing. And finally, with all of these scenarios that we're talking about here with our access to the PSTN being down, ensure that you are in compliance with the applicable laws for you for 911 access. You may be good with simply training your users that, hey, if the company phone system is down, use your mobile phones to call 911. Or you may be in a scenario where you have to have an analog phone on a wall every so often, sitting beside the first aid kit, the fire extinguisher, and the AED, just to ensure that there's a way for your folks to call 911. So out of all of these options, the Survivable Branch Appliance, I think, is the least popular one that I'm seeing these days. And the scenario that we're seeing a lot of is a hybrid scenario where the head office or the main office has a Skype for Business Enterprise Edition pool. And then for the branch offices, rather than have the users homed on that pool or an SBA, the branch office users are homed online, use the internet to get access, local egress from those branch offices to the internet, and it's a really slick solution that's working really well for a number of clients that I see. And I think it'll be very interesting with Skype for Business 2019, supposed to be released towards the end of the year. We haven't had any mention of the Survivable Branch Appliance. My suspicion is there's not going to be a heck of a lot of updates, if any, to it. Probably just some compatibility updates, maybe updating OSs and some Skype for Business components underneath. And that wraps up my presentation. Again, my contact information is on the bottom right of the slide. I'm happy to entertain your questions via posts on my blog, via email, but I would really encourage you more than using the blog and email to use Twitter, because not only will you get me, but you'll get the whole Skype for Business group of people out there, the whole Teams group of people out there with the appropriate hashtags that can respond and jump in and offer their insight, so that you get a fuller picture and maybe a faster picture or a better picture than what I alone can provide. But really great community who is more than willing to help answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much.